Hi, and welcome to the second video in our series, The Art of Engagement. I'm Jess. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I invite you to listen and watch. Christina, go. Oh, it looks like Christina is having a lovely summer day. Masa, go. Masa moved across pretty quickly with his arms moving fast. Evie, go. Evie was close to the screen and looked very curious to me. What did you notice happening? Yeah, they were moving across the screen any way they chose. Sometimes close to the screen, sometimes farther away. Let's keep going. As you watch, join in and move your body, or take mental notes of what you notice. This time, I want everyone to move either fast or slow, or a combination of the two. Christina, go. Oh, Christina's moving fast and she's looking all around with her hands. Masa, go. Masa's moving slow. He looks very serious. Evie, go. I wonder what Evie will choose this time. Oh, she's moving slow, but it looks kind of difficult. For this final round, everyone is going to move at the same time, and it's a great time to join us if you're joining us from home. 3, 2, 1, go. We can really tell a lot about how someone is feeling based on how they move through space, if we pay attention, if we listen, if we notice. We call this activity screen crossings. It's a great invitation to play, with a clear structure, but not a lot of rules. It also demonstrates the power of offering choices, fast, slow, or both, curvy, crooked, or a combination, or a free choice, whatever you want to do, however you want to move. When we moved from in-person to virtual classes, we had to use creativity for our activities to make them work in this setting. We took an activity called circle crossings, where someone would move from their chair across the circle in whatever way they wanted to, maybe curvy or crooked, and then sit back down. Obviously, we don't have the circle to move in this realm, but we just changed one thing about the activity. We made the space of the screen, moving from one side of the screen to the other. All right. Good thing I held on to the ball from last week. Here it comes.
Thanks, Jess. Hi, welcome to video 2 in Upstream Arts' 6-part series, The Art of Engagement. Now, the best practices that we're sharing with you and the curriculum activities that we're using to demonstrate those practices are all designed to help you discover new ideas, but also to reflect back on your own practice. This is a framework for all of us to practice our daily interactions and to practice listening to each other in new ways. Now, you're already probably familiar with many of the practices that we'll talk about, and you're most likely doing them every day. But we're going to ask you to see the possibilities of what can happen if you practice them with just a little bit more intention, just a little bit, every day. Because we think that it's in these small, everyday, ordinary moments where true inclusion and relationship building begins. All right. In the first of our series, we talked about creativity, the art of taking what you have in front of you and changing it, molding it, thinking about it a little differently to see it in a new way. In the next 2 videos, we'll be exploring the 2 elements that make up the first of Upstream Arts' 3 C's: connect, invite, and mirror. We've all had that experience, that feeling of being really connected to someone else or really connected within a group, and how that feeling translates into high-quality work and relationships. But we can't get to that point until we've spent some time connecting in very intentional ways. So today, the practice that we're going to look at is consistent, persistent invitations. Hi, how are you? It's the simplest of invitations. We do it every day, right? What if we did it with just a little bit more purpose? When we hire new teaching artists at Upstream Arts, the first responsibility that we give them is to say hi to everyone in every class, right? To welcome everyone, every class. People don't realize how important and powerful this kind of consistent and persistent welcoming and inviting can be. Consistent, persistent invitations and welcoming. We believe that it is the glue that makes our work and our relationship building so successful, even though we're only with students for 1 hour a week. All right, let's look at our schedule. Screen crossings, we did that. I'm doing the welcome. We'll do some intros and look at transitions as we always do. We'll talk a little bit more about how we prepare ourselves and how we use that consistent, persistent invitations as we facilitate class, and then we'll close it up. All right, and our guidelines. Choice. Now, I want you today to think about how you will choose to interact with these videos, and I invite you to join us in our activities. Start the practice of sharing an experience, even in this slightly awkward virtual and recorded environment. But we'll support the choice to just give attention and be an observer, which we also think is participation. And risk. I simply challenge you to try one new thing in the next 15 minutes. One new way of watching, observing, or engaging here in this space. All right, those are our guidelines. Now let's move on.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Julie, and sometimes I am a fiery Italian, and other times I like to really lay low.
Lay low.
Jess?
Hi, my name is Jess, and sometimes I am very serious. And sometimes I am very silly.
Hi, my name is Matt. Sometimes when I'm in a social situation, I can be pretty quiet. But when I get in front of a group of people, I can be pretty loud.
Pretty loud. Nice. Thanks all. I love taking the time to introduce ourselves with these opposing characteristics of who we are. I think it really illustrates that we're more than one thing, we're more than one story. It is not uncommon that an individual living with a disability is only identified by, described by, associated with that disability. How about we spend some time getting to know somebody, getting to learn, getting to experience the characteristics that make up somebody's story? We need to be curious to build community and to build relationships. This activity is a great way to get us going on all of that. So let's move on.
Okay, I'm going to put it right here for now. Hey, Matt, do you have that chime ready?
Sure do.
Great. All right. Our task as we transition now is to listen to the chime or to watch the color fade. Or both. You get to choose. All right, Matt. 3, 2, 1. Nice. Yeah, when we use one of our senses, it gives us something to focus on. Having something to focus on can help our brains relax. And when I say our brains, I don't mean just the students that we're working with, but the brains of other staff, and, just as importantly, the brains of ourselves. Did you notice that we started this video just the same way we did in the first video, We did an activity, we did a welcome where we went over the schedule and the guidelines, we introduced ourselves, we moved to transitions. Brains are pattern seeking. When patterns are noticed, brains can relax a bit. Then they don't have to work as hard just to be in the space. When brains can relax and feel safe, then that's when they can access the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is where students and adults can do the work of learning and growth. Think about your patterns in this virtual world. Think about how you can use transition moments, like the chime or the color focusing, to help all the brains involved relax. I'm guessing you know what to expect now as we shift voices. Yep, you guessed it, the ball. Here it comes.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into the first part of the equation of connection, and that is to invite. And when we invite, we are preparing. It's about preparation in 3 specific focused areas. Preparing yourself, preparing the space, and preparing the work. So we really think about all this preparation as being something that leads you to focusing on 2 specific elements: the sensory experience and the movement experience of the students in any one of these spaces. Sensory can mean the lighting, it can mean the sound, it can mean the temperature. What else could it mean? What does it mean for you? For me, the clutter, what I'm seeing behind myself, what somebody is seeing behind me when I'm teaching, that's an essential part of the preparation of the space. You have to know your relationship to all of these sensory elements and consider the relationship of the students that they might have to these sensory elements, and make sure that that space is flexible enough to accommodate all of the needs that you've got. We have to be able to react, respond to, and think creatively about how we're going to support students within that space. Okay. So Jess or Matt, how about some examples from you about what it is that you need when you go into a space, or what is it that you need to know before you get into that space? These are all related to the sensory experience.
I really find that I have to move my body. If I sit too long, then I actually start to lose concentration and can't hear what people are saying.
Nice. Kinesthetic, sensory experience as a means to learning. I like that. Good note. How about you, Jess?
For me, I really need to consider the auditory landscape, like how many auditory inputs are there and can I limit them down, just so it makes it easier for me to focus on one thing.
Nice. Okay. Auditory, kinesthetic. And for me, I need to be able to interact in that space before I do any kind of learning, before I do any kind of processing. Some of that is about touching the space. Some of it is about just decluttering it so that I can keep my eye on the prize and be really ready to learn. So when we think about talking about preparing the space, it's that sensory opportunity and the opportunity to provide options, to provide choices. Headphones are a great way to cancel out peripheral sounds, letting students know what they can expect before they get into the space based on that sensory experience. That's another way that you are preparing students for getting to learn. So the next sentence or element that belongs there is about preparing ourselves to be able to move into and out of a space. Now, when I think about movement, I think it's this critical element when it comes to learning. It's a part of the sensory experience. Kinesthetic learning is an incredibly important acknowledgement that we must provide for students, and that it's a valuable way that somebody is going to take on information. But I think related to movement, we also have to consider, how is a classroom set up? Now, we're in the virtual space here, so what does that look like? It goes back then to the sensory. What is it that a student is going to be seeing when they are engaging with you on the screen? In a classroom setting at Upstream Arts, we're always thinking about, how is the space set up? We set our chairs up in a semicircle every single time. The student knows that they can anticipate coming into a room, into a space, into an environment that's going to look exactly the same every single time. Are you doing that and providing that for your students in the virtual space? Are you letting them know that you might need to be moving? So if you are 6'4" like I am, 5'4" like I am, do you have enough room to move your arms and swing around? Because that's going to be a part of the activity or the learning experience that I'm going to provide for you. How people move into and out of spaces is not only a question of access that I think is incredibly essential when we consider making sure that every student can have space to learn, but it also encourages a kinesthetic experience for allowing and supporting students in the different ways that they do learn. Okay, so we discussed preparing yourself in that first video. So stretching is something that I like to do to get myself ready to engage. Actually, setting an intention at the beginning of the day helps me just set my mindset or reset that mindset and get myself ready to teach, getting those students that are ready to learn, right? So this next part then, after we've prepared the space through considerations of sensory and movement, is really thinking about the curriculum, that content that we've got. What we do is we think about intersectionality as being this fundamental consideration that we have to have. So what we want to avoid is we want to avoid inadvertently identifying a student based on a specific characteristic of who it is that they are. We have to remember that students are more than one thing and more than one story. Race, culture, gender, ability, disability. These are all characteristics of what makes up one individual person there. How are we representing all of those different considerations of personality, of who somebody might be in the curriculum that we are creating? We're not defined by our history or our past actions, and we all grow and change over time. And that is especially true for our disability community. Thinking about and remembering those pieces ensures that the intersectional experience of one of your students remains front and center as you build curriculum and content that is culturally community relevant. That then also speaks to language. In our classroom settings and environments, the different ways that students are communicating in our spaces is vast and quite diverse. There's different kinds of communications, just as there are different ways that people take in information. So there is this verbal, there is this written, there is this visual language experience. What are all of the ways within your classroom space and environment that you are ensuring that students can access content, or an individual that you're working with one-on-one? How can they access the information that you want them to have in more than one way? This is about providing choice and ensuring that almost everything that you say has a visual representation that comes along with it. Even better if you give a kinesthetic or an experience that can accompany, define, refine the lesson that you're teaching. It's about using creativity. It's about using flexibility once the individual that we're in a one-on-one relationship is in that space with us. That flexibility is going to ensure that everybody that we are working with is going to be able to access what it is that we need them to access: creativity. It really leads to this final element that we think is essential in preparing the space, ourselves, and our work, and that is the experience. How are you creating and crafting an experience for the students that you're working with? It's up to you to be defining what that experience is and really thinking about what kind of journey you're traveling towards, what kind of adventure you're looking for students to have, what kind of experience you want them to have when they come together in community with you and, in many instances, with each other. Sensory, movement, identity, language, experience. It's an acronym that we call SMILE, right? This is about a frame or a guide. It's a practice for how we at Upstream Arts prepare. It's a great tool to recall the 5 things that we consider to be some of the most essential ways that you ensure that you're building and creating a community and an environment that gets the community ready to engage, ready to learn. So my question for you then is, how are you going to smile?
Thank you, Julie. All right. We're going to take a look at one of our most popular activities, and one that we often do in our first meeting with groups. It's called emotion statues. And we're going to think about how we continually go back to those invitations as we facilitate an activity, and how we use the strategies of being curious, offering options for participation by breaking up an activity into different elements, and by providing positive feedback. All the ways that we use to create an inviting and welcoming learning experience. Let's have a look.
All right, Christina, I want you to just watch me, all right? Curvy. Down. Wide. All right, will you try this with me?
Okay.
Crooked. How does it make you feel to get in that position?
I feel really tense and stressed.
Yeah, I kind of agree. To the side. Twisted. Oh, you look like you're really confused almost. How does it look like I feel?
You look like you're trying to block a surprise party. Like you're like, don't look over here.
Nice. All right, Masa and Evie, I want you to watch Christina, okay? To the side. Crooked. Christina looks a little confused, I think. Wide. Evie, how do you think Christina is feeling there?
She looks like she's really excited to see someone.
Yeah, and she looks like open too, doesn't she? Let's see, Evie and Masa, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you're ready to give it a try. All right, Masa's ready. Evie, you're not. All right, maybe next round? Maybe? All right, let's try curvy. Oh, both of those are really different. Let's try twisted. Ooh. Evie, what do you see? How do you think they're feeling?
Christina looks angry, like she's having an argument with someone.
Evie, are you ready to give it a try now? Yeah? All right. Masa, do you want to keep going? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs down, no. Will you call out the shapes? If I hold up 2, you choose 1 for them to do, all right?
Okay. Up.
Up. Ooh, nice job. Evie almost looks surprised in her up.
Curvy.
Curvy.
Wide.
Ooh, wide. All right, rest. Nice job. Warm hands. Thank you for exploring those shapes. All right, we're going to do one more round. Everybody in it for the challenge round? Everybody up for a challenge this time? All right, here we go. Closed and surprised. Let's do surprised and down. Proud and curvy. Proud and twisted. A little bit the same. You can change it up a little bit. Proud, twisted, nice. Frustrated and wide. Ooh, I see. Interesting that frustrated for Evie is an open face, but frustrated for Christina is a scrunched up face. Right? All right, now I'm going to say the word change, and I want you to do whatever you want. Free choice. Here we go. Change. 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 Beautiful. And rest. Warm hands. Thank you.
These practices may seem obvious or fundamental, but again, we're simply putting some mindfulness to the practice. All right, that's it for this video. Julie, would you give us one final stretch to close it out?
So I'm going to move my arms up as high as I can get them, and feel free to mirror along with me. whatever that looks like, putting your arms up or high. Ooh, that's good. And then maybe make a fist if you want to, or tighten some kind of muscle, or think about tightening. Ooh, yeah, and that's kind of cool. And release with an exhale. I love it. Stretching. Nice way to wrap things up.
Thank you, Julie. We'll see you next time. And remember, keep practicing being creative.